I feel like my face is probably so pink right now. It's cold outside, but having to set up this space to film is a workout. This thing is fluffy, so I feel kind of warm. A little overstimulated. Very happy to be here. Very happy to be, even if I'm overstimulated, but that's a given. I get overstimulated quite frequently. Your first time here in my little teepee, my little home here on YouTube. Hello, my name is Jasa. And at first, my ancestors forced me on here to be vulnerable. Now, I love it. I love it because it is very healing for my inner child and my inner teen to just be me and like share me without thousands of masks that I've had to create through my life to be accepted. Right? Like accepted. I was never accepted. So I learned to throw those out and now I'm here. No masks. Maybe sometimes for Halloween. I am so tired. I'm grateful. I am so grateful to be here. I'm autistic ADHD, so be ready for a roller coaster of thoughts. We're going to get lost. We may find the thought. We may never find it again. We will see what happens. It's an adventure. Are you ready? Are you ready? So I'm going to do a trigger warning. Trigger warning. This one is going to be a story time. And I've been sitting on it for a minute and I had to like cry multiple times. I may cry again. I'm not sure. We'll see what happens. So if you do not know me, I am very spiritual. I am not religious in any kind of way. I did go to Lakota Catholic school. But that was for the education. It wasn't for the religion. And also, like, that school is on the same grounds as the boarding school that both my grandparents attended. I think my aunts and uncles attended that one also. Maybe the other boarding school on Pine Ridge. I'm not sure. But I know my grandparents attended the one I went to. I am spiritual. I'm very grateful that I got to learn my people, my ancestors, culture, knowledge, connection with the creator and like all the beings. And that my people were able to hold on to that because there was a time where it was legal to practice like our language, our culture, our traditions, our ceremonies, everything. So I'm very grateful that I got to hold on to it. And like from a child, I was exposed to both, right? Like religion's everywhere. It's in your face. And then my family was very spiritual. So I got to see both. And religion never resonated with me. Like especially with that book just because the people that follow it have a lot of hypocrisy in like what they do. Like they say there's so many things that they focus on, but it is like hypocritical to what they actually do and just so many things. So it didn't resonate with me. I'm like, they say to do this, but they don't do it, and they say not to do this, but they do it. Makes no sense. But in my Lakota culture, we only had 7 values to follow. They were super simple. I don't have them written down now. I will have them broken down in another project. But they're just like basic things you should do as like a person to be good to other people. Like I think there's like kindness in there. There's like just like simple basic things. And other than that, you live your life the way you want to. If you aren't hurting other living beings, you live your life. And I always resonated with that. And also I was raised with like seeing spirits fly around the room and stuff. So I knew magic was real. I knew it was real. And a lot of like religion kind of looks at it in a negative way, but I know not all of them, right? But the one I went to was Catholic, and it just didn't feel good to even want to learn it. Although I did have to learn a decent amount because I went to a Lakota Catholic school. But that God never called to me. Like in all the rules that men said that God has for people. Right? But that book was also written by man, and I don't really trust much men. So I don't even know. I do know Jesus was real though. Like I'll have a you know what? We're here. We're here. So my family were in a ceremony a very long time ago, like decades ago, I think before I was even born. And in the ceremony, the medicine man was talking. And then he said that there was a man in the corner crying. And then he said this man's name is Jesus. And he said he's still crying for the people. And like the way that hit me, and when I learned about him, he made sense. Like he literally came here to be like, hey, we make mistakes, we just have to acknowledge it and try to grow as people and be better. And then terrible things happened to him and all kinds of stuff. Right. But he's just basically someone like all of us that realized we're connected and was like, hey, all these rules that we're told to follow really limit us and make us treat each other terribly. Let's not do that. And then they justify murdering him and saying he died for us. But to each their own, that just doesn't make sense to me. But I'm okay. Story time. I was shopping. Going thrift shopping with my wife and my sister-in-law. And then I went to go look for some clothes. I was like looking at dresses. I found one that felt so soft. I was like, oh, I like this. It's so soft. And it just felt something. And then this being came up to me, and they were BIPOC. And they were like, Miss, can I ask you a question? I was like, yeah, of course. I was like so excited to have like a cool, stimulating conversation. And then she said something along the lines of, do you believe in God? And it hit me. Like all these emotions hit me because I knew what she was doing and the approach and way she was saying it. And I was thinking like I have two options. I can lie and say yes and just get her out of my space as fast as possible, or I can be honest. And I just heard ancestors, it's your time. So I was like, okay. And I looked at her and I was like, I believe in a form of that God. And like her confusion. And she's like, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, I'm indigenous. Or I'm Lakota. And I realized not everybody knows that tribe, right? Like there is hundreds and hundreds of tribes within Turtle Island. So I was like, I'm indigenous. And in my culture, we call them the creator. I have another project that really breaks it down. But the creator is many spirits, many beings as one. It's not just one God that's like a male in the sky. Not talking crap, but that's just not who I pray to. I pray to a collective of beings. And she like looked at me, she's like, would you want to be saved by Jesus? And like when she said that, I like my body started to shake. And it was hard to talk. Like I was almost crying the way I was talking. I was like, no, thank you. Like that God, unfortunately, a lot of people use that God's name to do terrible things to my ancestors, as like especially children. And then she looked at me like shocked. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? I'm like, boarding schools? Like, have you ever heard of boarding schools? And she had no idea. So confused. She said, no. Did they do some bad things there? And I was just like looking at her. And I need to realize that the boarding schools is not like it's not educated. A lot of beings that are not connected to boarding schools, that don't have family in it or people they love that were a part of it or descendants from it, they don't know. Because also, like, the colonizers made it seem like it was some nice thing that they did when they stole children from indigenous beings, stole all their children, put them in schools, called them boarding schools, and all these schools are ran by religious beings. And they did terrible things. Like, when they first come in, they were not allowed to speak their language. If they did, they were beat, sometimes beaten to unalived. Like, most boarding schools have cemeteries, and so many children were unalived in these boarding schools. So they weren't allowed to speak their language. They immediately cut all their hair off. And as indigenous being, like, majority of tribes, every tribe's beliefs are different. They can vary. But majority, our hair is very sacred. It's an extension of our spirit. They knew this, and they would just chop it off. And then they poured, I forgot, some kind of chemical over their head. Like, they did really traumatic things to these children. And the ones that made it out have so much trauma. Because also the religious beings that upheld the boarding schools did such terrible things to those children. And I didn't realize, like, how much pain I held for, like, what happened to my ancestors, but also, like, I could feel their pain when I was talking to this being that was trying to, like, push that God on me. And just, like, I felt so much sadness and, like, no hope. I felt so much. It was hard. And then she, like, looked at me. She's like, well, would you want to, I have a phone number if you ever want to text it. And we do prayer on there. And, like, at this point, I'm about to cry. I am really shaky. I'm, like, moving like this. And she had a person behind her, and they're looking at me, like, kind of, like, startled, because they probably no idea that is what was gonna happen. I had no idea either. And I was like, no, thank you. Like, no, no, thank you. And she's just like, her eyes are huge looking at me. And I was like, I do pray. Like, but I don't pray to that God. And she's like, okay. I'm like, I hope you have a good day. And then she's like, I hope you do too. And they walked away. And man, trigger warning, I had a very mild panic attack. It would have got way worse. But I, like, put the dress away. No more clothes shopping for me. I, like, ran to my wife and sister-in-law and was just, like, trying to breathe. I was leaning on my wife. I did not realize how activating that experience was going to be and how much pain I held within me. Because I've cried many times specifically about what's happened to my ancestors and my family. Like, my mom was the only child out of all my grandparents' kids that didn't go to boarding school. She was the youngest. But other than that, my aunts and uncles, my grandma and grandpa, and they had so much trauma. So much trauma from that. Because they're, like, kids. And then they're in boarding school until, like, they graduate high school. And then they're expected to just go be adults and go live with all that trauma they carry. I was watching this show. It's called North of North. It's on Netflix. It's indigenous show. It's a really good, super good. Spoiler. There's a part in there where the main character's mom is talking to this Unchi, this grandma, and that grandma actually, I think she's like, she upholds something within that church I don't know what she is, but she runs that church in a way. And then the mom was talking to that grandma, and the grandma was talking to her about her mom, because the lady's mom passed away. And then the grandma knew that lady's mom. And she's like, I understand like how hard it was for you, trauma wise, right? And she's like, but it's really hard to be a mom when you didn't have one, when yours wasn't there. And like, that's why it's really hard for me to be angry towards my mom, because I understand like both her parents came from boarding schools and they had so much trauma and they had no idea how to be a parent. And then like you put that with having children and like having to try to survive, so much more trauma occurred, right? So I no longer hold any anger towards my mom. I understand like why she is the way she is. And it's just hard. I think the way the being approached it too really activated me, because it was like pushing that God onto me, and that's exactly what happened to my ancestors. They pushed it on the children, and in such like horrific ways. It wasn't a choice, and they did like terrible things to those kids. I've heard elders say like what sisters and like fathers did to them. It's terrible. It's terrible. So I did not realize like how much I was holding in, and I came home and I cried, and probably gonna cry a couple more times. But I know they were like, that happened for a reason. I think it happened for that person to learn something. Like I'm hoping they learn not to just approach people and push their God on somebody, especially when they don't know like what the name, like their God, what people have done, and use the name of that God to hurt other beings. And also she's BIPOC, and I know probably has been happened to her ancestors, because a lot of them were stolen, and then they lost their connection to their spirits, their traditions, their culture, everything like that. And then all they have is that God, right? So I do not judge. You can believe in whoever you believe in, but do not push that being onto me. That's where I am, cuz also I share my culture and my knowledge of my culture and everything like that, but I will never push on anybody. Ever. You do not have to pray to Dunka Shalom on Kantanka. You do not have to do none of that. Ever. Whatever resonates with you is what resonates with you. But the way she was coming up and like pushing it really activated me. And I know it was also a lesson for me, because I know with where I'm going to be connecting with a lot of beings that do pray to that God. And I know that God is not bad. It's just a lot of people use that God's name to do a lot of bad things. So it's really hard for me to even want to pray to that God. I know I never will. Personally, I got lots of spirits and beings I already pray to. um but I'm sharing this because we don't realize that we also hold our ancestors' trauma and pain. And when I was crying, I could just feel them all around me. And I know like I have a bunch of ancestors that are children. Like when I've seen my ancestors before, and I've seen hundreds of children, like they were wearing the clothes they were forced to wear in boarding schools. Their hair were chopped. Like, and then I know none of them made it. Like thousands and thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of children were unalived during boarding schools. Indigenous children were unalived. So I was just crying and like crying for them because a lot of them, they don't even have names on their graves. A lot of them were never sent back to their families. They were just in like a scary place with people that spoke a language they didn't understand and were beaten, and horrible things were done to them in the name of this God. So that's why when that person approached me in the way that she approached me, it really activated me. And I'm grateful because I know I still have like feelings I need to feel with it. And I just I wanted to share that. It kept calling to me. And also if you follow me on my TikTok, if not, totally can. I'm there. Try to be daily. Not always. Trying. I attract a lot of religious people. Like spirit, the ancestors, the creator be sending me to a lot of religious people, and then they just assume that I'm religious. And I don't take that personally. Like it doesn't upset me or anything. It's confusing, but I understand because I talk about like ancestors, spirit, and stuff, and God is a spirit, so that makes sense in the way like I say things. Guess it makes sense. I don't know. I don't know. But I know they're preparing me because I am going to connect and be friends with a lot of people that are religious, but their religion, like they're not going to be forcing it onto me, right? They're not going to be like, have you been saved?" No, I don't want to be saved. I'm good. My creator doesn't think I need to be saved. I'm cool the way my spirit is. I'm just sharing that because, like, as you're on this journey and making a safe space for your spirit, depending on like your ancestors and what happened to them, but especially if you're BIPOC, sometimes it could be really overwhelming and like you don't even realize where these emotions are coming from. And some of it can be from your ancestors that they never got to feel. Like the kids from the boarding schools, when I was crying, I could just feel them, like mourning what happened to them, but also grateful that I acknowledged them. That I acknowledged that what happened to them was not okay. They deserved to be safe and loved unconditionally and not judged and beaten and unalived for being who they were. It's just so much. It is so much. I'm gonna drink some mini, some water, some water. I do not judge anybody for believing in whoever they believe in. I was gonna say that now. You believe in God, yes. Yes, you do that. You do that. I do believe in Jesus. I believe he was very real. Um, I bet you that God's real too. It's just men like to do a lot of terrible things, and a lot of them have used that God's name to do it. Frustrating. I've held off on this topic too for a while because I didn't want to cause like upset anybody, but this is who I am. And especially with my projects when I'm creating, I'm going to be transparent. There's no way I can hide that. You know? And I'm not saying that religion is bad. I'm not saying any of that. It's just, unfortunately, a lot of religious beings through my life and my ancestors' lives have caused so much harm and pain and suffering, forcing their beliefs onto other beings. And I don't think that's right. Like forcing what you believe on other people. I on here share like my culture, my point of view, and I have other projects where I will share my point of view and like my people's culture and beliefs and everything like that. But that doesn't mean that I'm pushing it. I'm not like, because I believe this, you have to believe this. Never will I do that. If things I say, things I believe do not resonate with you, don't take it. Like, do not put it in your life if it does not resonate with your spirit. I think that's one thing is like religion. There was so much friction for me because it was so limiting. At least like the one I was taught. I know there's like so many variations of religion. Um the Catholic one that I was taught was very limiting but also very hypocritical. So it just didn't make sense to me at all. And I'm very grateful that even though those horrific things happened to my ancestors, that they somehow were able to hold on to our language, our culture, our traditions, our ceremonies, because that connects us to our creator, Wankatanka, which is many beings in one. In reality, I know their names Lakota, but not off the top of my head besides Unchimaka, which is grandmother Earth. And then it has the sun. I think the sky. I think those four, maybe another spirit or two, but they are Wankantanka, which makes so much sense to me because those are physically, you see them. You see them. Unchimakashi allows us to live every day. The sky allows us to breathe. Like, the sun gives us light and vitamin D. Like, so many things. It just makes more sense to me. But to each their own, whatever feels right to your spirit. Also, we are all our own spirit or spirits. It is so complex. And unfortunately, colonizers took a lot of beings' knowledge of like their creators, their connection, took it, destroyed it, right? Within their colonization. And very few actually were able to hold on to it as much as they possibly can. So we just got little puzzle pieces trying to figure out. Colonizers just frustrate me. Because also, like Lakota, I'm Lakota. We are star people. That is in our stories that we come from the stars. And I know there's so many other beings. They have like different origin stories, and some of them also come from out in the space. You know, Ugh, colonizers frustrate me because can you imagine if they didn't do all their terrible things? All the knowledge we'd have, like I know we still have it, but like all the knowledge, and then just being able to share it with each other, and then really break down as much as we know about the universe. But colonizers like to destroy and conquer. Like that's something that's good. I'm also allowing myself to be sassy because I'm like an ogre. I'm like an onion. I'm many layers. I know on my TikTok I definitely pull out like my inner child and like my excited, happy part of my spirit. But I have many layers. I'm also sassy. I can get really frustrated and like fired up with things I believe in, especially like injustices and beings being oppressed and treated less than because of colonizers. I am layers, and I'm no longer going to just do the top layers that people can handle better. We're diving into the whole onion. Be ready to cry, be ready to blow your nose, all those things. I'm being me. I'm being me so that beings can be themselves. Like, especially we look online, everything is so like polished. And I know I've been like that too. Like my Instagram, I don't know, that's just the energy there. It just doesn't feel good, but Maybe I'll figure that out. But just how you get little snippets, and usually people will just put the good highlights of their lives online. And then we see that and we think like they don't suffer. They don't deal with struggles. They don't have their own battles they're fighting because we just see the good parts. I unfortunately, just kidding, it's not unfortunate. My ancestors have forced me for now a couple years to not do that, to show the ugly parts of me online. And it's uncomfortable for sure, especially when the majority of people are not doing that. But I've had a lot of beings share with me how much that's helped them in making a safe space for their spirit and knowing that they can be themselves and we're not perfect. We're gonna make mistakes. Like, I have been a hurt person hurting people. And I will admit that because that's the only way I stop being one is acknowledging it. And if we fake like we never made mistakes and I'm perfect, that's not real. And then also you're like showing these kids thinking if they made a mistake that where was I going? I don't know. Showing these kids that like unrealistic. You're being fake. You're not being real. You're putting on these masks. I don't want that. Like, I want our future generations, the children and their children and their children, to be able to just be who their spirits are. Roam around, be who their spirits are, loving everybody, no matter who they pray to. Like, just coexisting and just being. That's what I want. And that's why I'm going to show up every day being me, all the layers of me. And that's it. Even if my face is pink and red, no makeup, I don't care. I've been loving this pumpkin. It was like a Snuggie, kind of. It's like a Snuggie, just not as thick. The texture, soft textures, have been really helping me right now with going through my shadows and stopping cycles that do not resonate with me anymore. I'm trying to be as comfortable as possible while I'm also getting very uncomfortable out of my comfort zone, creating things that I'm loving. Loving. Okay, story time over. Thank you for spending your time with me. I just want you to know, if you are religious, heck yeah. Like, if that resonates with you and that makes your spirit happy, I love that for you. I just will never allow somebody to push that God onto me or like any other indigenous people or BIPOC people in general. If like they don't want it, I ain't cool with it because the trauma and history that comes with it. Like, it literally is stored within our bodies. I did not realize I was going to react that way. But after ancestors were telling me, like, I did such a good job, they even got me a free treat at one of the food places I went to. They know I love food. So they're like, good job, my girl. Here you go. I know you may have had a panic attack, but here's a cookie. I'm all crying. Thank you. But you know what? I'm healing for me, for my ancestors. I'm feeling all the feelings so it's no longer stored and affecting the way I move in life. We got this. We're going to make a safe space for our spirit or spirits. And we're living the life our spirits came to Uchimaka, Grandmother Earth, to live. We are living! These colonizers are not stopping us. No matter how scary they're making the world right now, our love is the most powerful magic. Sounds corny, but love is the most powerful magic. So you go love yourself. And we're going to bring magic back to this world. Love. Dokshake. I'll see you later.